Hi, my name is Erin, and my topic is immigration, and I'm specifically talking about it through the lens of the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. I first heard about this act when Trump was president, when he announced the travel ban, and also our books talk about this topic as well. But as textbooks can only do, they can only denote so much space to a specific topic, so I really feel it's our job as students to sort of dig in more on our own. So I'm going to try to give you some key dates to remember surrounding Chinese immigration into the country before and after the act was signed. And some subtopics that might be worth checking out that I thought were interesting were paper sons and daughters. Check that out. And also the Great Chinese Famine that happened in like 1950s. Pretty gruesome. Okay, so let's dive in a little bit here. So the act was signed in 1882, and our president was Chester A. Arthur at the time. He's primarily known for signing this act, but also the Pendleton Act. He's also known for recognizing Korea eventually as a sovereign nation, and he was also the son of an immigrant himself, so that's ironic. His dad was an Irish immigrant. So he passes this act, and I think it's important to also remember that it was really signed under the guise of white supremacy, because by the time this act was passed, a lot of people were picking on the Asian Americans for the way they dressed and the way they looked and the way they ate and for taking their jobs. Okay, so there's that. But let's go backward a little bit. 1815 was around the time that Asian Americans were starting to come through into the country. A small group of them. And then 1820s, they started coming a little bit more. 1830s, I think a key date to remember would be 1848, the gold rush. Brought a lot more Chinese Americans over, Asian Americans, to work at the gold rush, to secure a living, to get jobs, to get money, to send money back to their families. But I think it's also important to remember that up until 1842, California was still part of Mexico. So right after that, there was another, bigger group of them coming over. 1848 for the gold rush. 1864 was another time period maybe to remember because they were coming over to help build the railroads a lot more specifically at that time. So the Central Pacific Railroad and the Transcontinental, the western part of it, were built by a lot of Asian Americans, those railroads. Sorry, I'm tired and I'm at work. So if you hear drums in the background, I apologize. This is the best I got. So 1864, the Central Pacific Railroad. Let's go into 1875, the Page Act. This was really what got everything started. The Page Act first prohibited Asian women from coming into the country. Asian men, Chinese men could still come in, but it was the Page Act of 1875 that was the first wave of stopping Asian Americans from coming over. And it was geared towards women, so that's just sad. And now we're at 1882 again. The Chinese Exclusion Act was signed. 1892 and 1894 are important dates to remember. 1892, I hope I don't say this wrong, probably will. The Geary Act. 1894. The Gresham-Yang Treaty. Both of these were extensions of the Chinese Exclusion Acts. So after the 10 years passing and another 10 years passing, these acts kept coming out to keep prohibiting Asian Americans from really securing a life here, from really coming over here and staying. When these acts were passed, if you were Asian American in this country already, or if you were trying to come over, you couldn't stay without a green card that kind of stated how you got here legally. It wasn't a green card called a green card at that time, but it was kind of like that. And really, they were still making it hard at this time for, again, Asian Americans to stay and to come here in general. 1905, China starts getting upset, so they do a Chinese boycott. It's called the Chinese Boycott of American Goods. They start protesting certain goods like toilet paper, etc. So kind of hurt our economy a little bit because they're upset. And then the 1943, I might say this wrong too, Magnuson Act was signed. So this is the act that repealed the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. That was 1943. Okay, so that's a long time. There was a long time of push and pull of trying to extend the act originally to keep Asian Americans from establishing a life here, for making a good life for themselves. So again, those are some key dates to remember. Sorry, I'm on no sleep. This is the best I got. So thanks.